ishKiia Paige. It's so nice to finally get to chat face to face.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. So we are fellow authors and sci-fi writers. And just as a little background, ishKiia is an author, editor, narrator, life coach, and is dedicating to raising self-awareness through having fun. That's my kind of person. And she has written the Sleeping Phoenix series, or is in the process of it. And I just got to read Fractured. So what brought this about, I was reading Fractured and it came to mind when I wrote The Data Collectors, my first sci-fi book. One of the first Amazon reviews that came in said, "This is a little complex for light reading." Now, your book Fractured is very like multi-leveled, multi-dimensional, and I mean that in more ways than one. So I felt like ishKiia Paige was coming in to talk to Danielle, and she was saying, "Yeah, you think that's complicated? Hold my beer." So let's talk a little bit about the book, because, from what I read, there were so many layers. There's that spiritual life lessons. There's the multi-dimensions of the universe and the human body. There's the actual story, which is just a fun adventure. And then, I'm reading it and I'm pretty sure that I'm going to take away different things than somebody else's based on their experience. So there's so much happening. And I found myself going from, what does the author mean by this? And halfway through, I'm like, okay, well, what do I mean by this? And it really helped take it in a different way. And I had the unique opportunity to both read and have the audio. So what I would do is I would read when I was sitting down, and then when I was driving or cleaning, I would pick up on whatever chapter on the audio and keep going there. So I got both sides of it, which was a lot of fun. All that to say, I'm going to shut up and let you do some of the talking. Please tell us, what is the inspiration behind Fractured?
It was multifaceted, definitely multifaceted, because I never wanted to write a book. I never wanted to write a book, never aspired to write a book. Yeah. But people have told me so many times, you have to write a book about your life. Oh. No, I don't have to write a book about my life. No, I don't really.
So can you tell us a little snippet about what did they find so fascinating or interesting about your life? Can we share that? Or
yeah, there's so many things, I, like your life, from what I found out, was very active. You experienced a lot of things. That's how my life is. I never had no in my vocabulary. So I would try just about anything. I've done world tours to represent the United States in martial arts. I've worked in the engineering world and was on research center complexes implementing system softwares and some of the things I have done is just like crazy. It's like, and then people say, well, then you had all of these bad experiences. It's amazing how you overcame it. Mm-hmm. Oh, you were supposed to die and you're here. Oh, so, it's like I have a lot of stuff that I've overcome. Okay. Forced. Some of it was forced. Yeah. And some of it was choice, it's just the way life is.
Yeah. And obviously it resonated with people, what you did have to overcome for them telling you, you've got to write a book. And I didn't know about your martial arts background. I also have a varied martial arts background of about 10 years. I'm not great. Now that I switched into teaching, I taught yoga for about 18 years. And I always tell everyone, yes, I will defend myself with my tree pose. And then I will run away. But it was a fun, when I studied, I don't know what your experience was. I was the only girl for years. And so it did come in handy when I was dating, because if any of my boyfriends would get out of line, I had lots of big brothers in class that were just, just say the word. So,
That's awesome.
all right.
So yeah,
So,
people kept telling me, yo, I got to write a book. Finally, I was talking to one of my great friends in the UK on a Zoom session, because we get together once a month or a couple months, whenever we can, just to catch up, because both of us are life coaches. And if you hear my dog eating his food in the background, sorry.
no
Anyway,
worries. We got a zoo. We got it.
She finally said again, along with, I don't know how many times I've heard it, you really need to write a book. And you know how somebody can say something one time, you can hear it a million times, you can say something one time and something resonates inside.
Yeah. You can hear it 15
knowing.
times and nothing happens. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. And well, that happened.
Okay.
And I'm like, this is a knowing. This is like, it's like one of those knowings. I have to do this. But I'm like, no way in hell I'm going to write a book about my life. I just don't want to relive it. I lived it once. I've had plenty of great experiences, plenty of bad experiences, and I would just rather live now. But then I finally came to a compromise. And I thought, well, what I've learned in my life isn't worth shit unless I share it.
Yeah.
Pass it on. But I don't want to preach.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to do a self-help book that says, this is how you should do this, and this.
Right.
Because only a certain very finite amount of people will be exposed to that, and they might get a little bit of it, yeah, but the chances are they're not going to implement it in their life, yeah, very quick. And so I came to a conclusion that, one, I would write this book, but I want people to learn by having fun. Yeah. I want them, I want them to read a story, an adventure, yeah, but I don't want them being preached at. I don't want them feeling like they're being told to believe something, or yeah, because there's an alchemy there. People are different,
Yeah, you leave a lot of room in your book where you're not saying you should be this way. It's like, this is what the character's experiencing, and you can draw your own conclusions on how that applies to your life. And I imagine it helps you. Now, I tend to be rather hypersensitive. So there were passages I was reading and I was feeling really sad. And it didn't matter if it was a happy scene. I was like wondering what corresponding life event was happening to you, because even though you took that distance, you had to still feel it when you were writing it, because I could feel it when I was reading it. So yeah, it must have been an emotional roller coaster, I would think.
It really was. And there was a lot of healing that happened also too when I wrote that series. And Fractured is actually more of a prequel than the first book. But being a new fiction writer, never written before, yes, I say that. I've written nonfiction stuff. Right. And courses. Yeah. That's a lot different than a fun adventure. Yeah.
And it is fun. I like you. I started off, I'm also a life coach, and I started off and I still am a professional writer. And I'd written so many articles. I thought, oh, when I write a book, it's probably just like a recipe. You just, double the recipe, triple the recipe. I got in there. I'm like, okay, I don't know anything. And I'm just going to have to rest in the uncomfortableness of, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about just a brief description of Fractured, surface level, like what's actually happening in the story.
Well, on a surface level, in general, in the book, there's a main character, Zreyas Rittak. He comes from a race called Janquar, and he has a brother that he doesn't realize that he loves dearly, you know, because they're a very warring nation. They don't, you know, show emotion. They don't, you know, it's all about killing. It's all about making their horns grow from the kills and the bad intentions. You know, everything, every kill they make, every whatever, it shows in their horns, and they mold them. Every time they make a kill, you know, it molds them, you know, they mold them and stuff.
Like a gangster with a new tattoo. Like,
yeah, exactly. So, you know, it's just like they have that, their race has flaws, you know, and things like that. But, you know, in the beginning, I don't start out with the main character.
Yeah.
I want you to get invested in two other characters so that you understand what's behind the main character. It's the foundation. Why, without those two characters, Aya and Aru, it would be a very shallow plot.
Yeah.
Because it would have to be introduced in or whatever later. And turns out, it really, honestly, it was my mistake not to put a glue piece in the beginning, because a lot of people aren't used to, a lot of people are used to being handheld in books now. I've read plenty of older books that start out with two different things going on and they end up merging, which is exactly what I did. But
people are less patient now. Back in the day, they took time. I was actually talking about this to a friend of mine who's also an author, Dr. Roger, and he was saying, you know, he was mentioning how older books were so vastly descriptive. And I said, well, you know, it wasn't going to be made in a movie a year from then. Like, you had to take time to set it up, because you had to, the person had to see it in their mind. They weren't going to see it at the movies, most likely. So I think we've lost that patience to let it build.
Yes.
And I have to say, well, the first thing that made me like not cry, but it was when Aru was, you know, with this, he's wrapping his, so these are war horns, right? But he's wrapping it around Aya to protect her. And I'm like, oh, so I just had this all moment, like somebody that's supposed to be, you know. And what I loved about Zreyas is I can relate to that, not being warlike, but as a teenager, like doing the right thing because you had this sense of guilt, like, fine, I'll do it because it's the right thing to do, but I really don't want to. And it's so funny to watch his internal struggle of, I know I should be a better person, to actually becoming the better person, which I thought his internal dialogue was a lot of fun for me.
Yeah. That's a lot. People love Zreyas. They absolutely love Zreyas because he gets himself in trouble, but he's so honest. You know, people admire that about him. At the same time, it's like he's so blunt and honest.
And I found a new way to curse. From now on, it's just going to be kicking hell.
That's my favorite thing in life now, is when somebody talks to me in conversation, they'll say ticking hell, you know.
That is a true compliment as an author.
Yes.
So I don't know if I feel like I'm missing something really big, but through that, he's a horned creature. Are we supposed to know if he is human-like? Because I thought he was in a cell in a body in the beginning, because he, you know, and there are things where I thought they were floating around in a human body, and then all of a sudden he's on another world and he's small, and I'm like, is he even a human, or is he a little microorganism? Should I know what he is?
Well, the mistake that, well, it's kind of almost like a mistake, because you knew ahead of time where this was actually taking place. Yeah. So really, in the beginning, you know, in this whole series, it's an actual human-like kind of character with horns and, a different kind of face and a race that has eye issues. And
how are these people coming out of the tunnel and being born? Like, it's like his enamor, like, where did they come from?
that's part of the mystery of the series. So it won't get revealed. It'll get revealed more and more and more as time goes on. Book 2 and 3 really start touching it.
Yeah.
It's a whole part of the main course of the series is finding out where he came from, where he really came from.
Okay, so it's okay that I still don't 100% have it figured out. Okay, good.
You shouldn't
Because I'm
have
like,
it figured out.
okay, I can see the universe that's a body, because I always if I give anything away, we can cut it. Because I was feeling like, okay, they keep saying if she dies, everybody dies. Is she the human body? And if she dies, and so she has to get reincarnated to save her, is what I thought. But then Zreyas ended up on this other kind of Earth-like planet. So I'm like, here's that one universe, and then there's the larger external universe, and then all these and then you had the visages come in, which I always think of as helping spirits. So anyway, I'm going off on a tangent, but I was like trying to put and that's why I said to you, I'm like, in the email, I just had to surrender and be like, I am just gonna not try to dissect it and just read the story. And then it started making sense. As soon as you let go.
Preconceived ideas, yes, and that's part of it. That's part of the whole alchemy.
Yeah. So I went down on it, but so can you tell us at least about what a fracture is? Because I have a few definitions based on what I read.
Well, a fracture is on a surface level, on the adventure level, it's an anomaly that happened that they don't understand. And then you can add layers to it, which is intended. Fractures are anything that disrupt life or the status quo or an inconvenience or something scary, depends on the person, what they get out of it, because we are all different. We have all different experiences, that kind of thing. So straight up adventure, it's just a space anomaly.
Yeah. Okay. So it could be too kind of a portal to other dimensions. It means a lot of things. It could be physical fracture, like you fractured an arm, versus fractured you just went through another dimension.
I mean, you go through it, you are essentially starting a new life because there's no returning. So once you make a decision, I mean, basically once you get past the present moment into something else, you're really starting a new life. And people can view it according to their religious beliefs or their spiritual beliefs or their non-spiritual beliefs or whatever. You can interpret it however you want, reincarnation, rebirth, new adventure, whatever.
And that's what I liked about when, am I saying his name right? Ritu.
Ritu, yeah.
Yeah. And he was so funny. I like it because it could be aspects. If a person doesn't believe in something else, some other worldly beings, it can just be, oh, these are different facets of my personality, my subconscious. I read it because I do believe they're helping spirits. And when I meditate, sometimes I get a funny guy that comes in and just gives me information, and it's usually sarcastic and I'm laughing. So when I read his character, I'm like, I know a guide he sounds quite a bit like. So to me, they were a lot of fun, and it was fun to see that they were not omnipresent. They couldn't, like everybody assumes we can do everything, but we have our limitations. So I liked the layers of, just because something is a higher frequency versus a lower, which we'll get to, it doesn't mean that the higher can just do everything that, automatically. I'm getting ahead of myself, but it does lead to the next question. You describe this as a transformational journey. and you talk about the design of the human. Can you tell us what that means?
This gets into why I wrote the book. Like we've said before, you know, everybody's different. They have different experiences. I truly tried to give my legacy of every character, every place, every ship, or every whatever in that has an alchemy of something. So Ritu's alchemy of who he is and what he represents is different than Ram or Zreyas or whatever. But when you put them together and they interact, because people are different, they will relate more. Some people will relate more to Ram and Zreyas, or you know, Ritu and Aya, or whatever, because that's their life experience, right? So but when you put them together in this story, people will, you know how water drops kind of magnifying. That's what they're going to get first. You know, their interaction and their lessons, their experience, their whatever, that's what they're gonna get first. And so it's the transformational journey is from surface level to in-depth level. I have a friend that has a doctorate in metaphysics. And she was actually like you. She tried to analyze. What's happening? Analyze everything. She was so excited about it. You know, she's like, this is so cool. But then she started trying to analyze everything. And I was like, stop analyzing. Just enjoy the story. And she said, and I said, promise you, you'll get more out of it. And she was like, okay, I trust you. You know, she's from the UK. We have a great relationship. But anyway, this is a different UK friend.
Okay.
But anyway, she did, and she was like, oh my gosh, the whole world opened up. You know, it was just, I took my left brain out of it, you know. But the alchemy is important. That's why, because one of the reasons why I wanted to write this book was because I wanted to leave a legacy. And I wanted to pass on my life experience lessons without being preachy. So I designed these, and of course, this is all based on science, I know. So I represented this stuff in my life with the science that I know, the body science, the frequency science, the quantum science, all of that kind of stuff. So because everything in here, it can be proven by science. But nobody wants to listen to a science lesson. I mean, really, well, very few. Okay.
A few nerds
like it. My friend in UK likes it, but you know, hey, it's not everybody's thing. So, you know, I basically every character has a design, has a makeup, down to what kind of aura they have, because there's several different types of auras, you know, and that's energy. That's the energy around us that we emit. So, you know, it's like when a person reads it, they will it's amazing to get feedback on what people get out of it, because it's so vastly different. There's a lady that posted on Facebook, on my Facebook page, about how her whole entire life changed.
Wow.
A total recluse and couldn't go out of her room. And she realized reading this book, she read books 1 and 2, and she's doing her best to wait for book 3. But she realized she had anger issues.
Wow.
And she got this through Zreyas' experience, the Hall of Waves.
Oh, wow.
And then she adapted that to her life. And the whole funny thing is she got the book by accident. She ordered another book and she got fractured by accident.
Wow.
And her neighbor said, read it. There's a reason you got it. Just read it.
Yeah.
You know, who knows? She didn't know what it was either. So anyway, now she's able to actually go to the grocery store, and she hasn't been able to do anything like that for decades.
So no matter what happens from now on, you know that you've significantly impacted someone's life, and that's got to feel pretty darn good.
Yeah. So that's the reason why I wanted to leave the legacy. And that's kind of the alchemy. It's an illustration of the alchemy. Now, other people have told me, wow, I've actually gotten something totally different out of it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I built it. And I made a rule when I started this transformational series. Whatever channeled, when I write, I kind of generally do a very loose outline. When I say loose, I mean really loose, like dots here.
Yeah, you know, you're gonna here and end up here, but there's going to be a whole lot of other stuff I don't know yet what's happening in
Yeah. And I tried in the beginning to plan it. I planned for months, and it was like, I cannot get this. I just can't.
I wonder if you write the same way? Well, in my case, I wrote out of order. I just, whatever came to me that day, I'd start there, and I was like, I can go back and rearrange and fill in later. And I don't know if you approached it that way or not, but I could
didn't.
not outline. You went start to finish.
Mostly, yes. Not
Wow.
always. There was a couple of times I got stuck, and then I would write what I did know, and then I would fill in. But that happened kind of very little. It happened once in book 1, and it happened twice big time in book 3. Because book 3 just gets like, it's like the catalyst of the series, you know. So everything's coming together, and it's getting crazy, and then the character did something that was totally a left turn, and it like totally blew my outline out of the water. I had no idea where it was going, and I kept
characters
writing.
taking the life of their own. So you started to say, when you sat down, whatever comes in. So was it, do you feel like it was channeling, subconscious? So you like, would you describe it?
I would say channeled, because I don't know. I mean, I'll sit there and I'll start writing, and the next thing you know, it's hours later, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
This is happening?
Yeah.
It's watching that movie unfold right in front of my eyes. It's like nothing is more interesting to me in my life anymore, other than writing and watching this transformational journey happen. So I'm transforming as well.
So this is a nosy question. You don't have to answer it, but I'm curious, do you know what it is? Is it your higher self? Is it a help, some kind of guide? For some people, it's God. Do you know what it is or who it is?
It's both. To me, it's the higher part of myself, and also guides. And I even know for sure one time I had a dream right before I woke up. And usually I don't dream very often, but usually when I have something significant come in a dream, it's right before I wake up. And my mother gave me the solution I needed. in that day. So, but my rule is when I channel something in, whatever it is, I cannot change it. I can edit it. I can rearrange it. I can reface it to where it needs to be refaced or whatever for that, but I cannot undo it.
You can't take it out of the story. It has to be in the story. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you have to translate it, because you're translating it through your human mind. So it's not going to come in exactly. And I was curious about that because some of the writing style seemed almost like not trans-like, but if you look at old parables, it's the delivery is not, I can't think of the best word. It's not flowery descriptive. It's very matter of fact. And I know people who do write and channel, and the messages come in very succinctly. And so there were elements of that where I can see, as you're describing it, that you went in after and probably polish it a little bit to fit into the story. Now I'm going to segue again, and tell me if I go off on too many rabbit holes. The thing that tripped me up when we use the words Tantra and aura and quantum, because I have a meaning, but I don't sense that you're using them in the same way that I'm using them. I think of auras like, your yellow aura, your orange aura, or you have different colors associated, but I think you might be using them differently.
Yeah, I mean, colors are basically an indication of a filter that we use as humans in our eyesight for a certain frequency. So and that's how I use aura is basically we have an energy about us, and it's not just finite in our body, as but it's basically how our auras work, and some auras are sampling, some are just there, some are inviting, and some actually push away, like Zreyas, his pushes out, it's the kind of design he is, and people have auras like that, and it's been, again, scientifically proven. But Tantra is a Sanskrit word, and it's the oldest language we know on the planet, right? And I don't know why. Maybe it's because of, I have no idea, but people, instead of thinking it as the oldest language in the world, they associate it with a religion or several religions. And that's not why I'm using it. The words is, I like Sanskrit. I love Sanskrit, and it's the only language in the world that hasn't deteriorated.
Yeah. So what does Tantra mean in the course of your book?
Tantra is basically in the book, on the surface, it's like a queen or whatever, but the actual literal meaning from the root of tan is weave or compose. So she weaves and composes energies to create more population. So that's how their race reproduces, is she sings a song, and that kind of thing, and the energy just gets bigger and bigger and bigger until there's just too much, and then it spills out and basically creates more of the Viduri, kind of thing. So that's kind of how the Tantra part works. So it's just I love Sanskrit.
Yeah. Last one, and then I'll go on to my other question. So quantum, I think of quantum as a small measurement of an energy of a something. But when you say you use the quantum, you're referring to it sounds like in a different way, unless I am not understanding how you're meaning it, which is possible.
Well,
Kia's like, what did I get myself into with this?
No, this is fine. Quantum, basically in this book series, it's more about quantum space, the potential.
Mhm.
potentials, because everything is, like you said, it is that energy. It is that little piece, but it's everywhere. It's that potential, and it's always there. And it's the whole series is about, basically using it to improve your life. But it's the base alchemy of the magic in the book, so to speak. Some people, when they write fantasy books or whatever, they use mana or whatever for their base alchemy for their magic. Well, in this book, instead of mana, it's quantum.
I like it. I just and and so that was another one of those things I have to suspend getting tangled in the words and what I think they mean versus what they are in this setting. So that made sense.
But what you're doing, I mean, what you're getting out of it is perfect for you.
Yeah. Okay, I took us all down a rabbit hole. I'm known to do that. So back on track, my lovely little notes that I had written previous, because I didn't want to forget so we talk about low frequency beings and high frequency beings. I know what I think they mean, but I'm curious for the reader picking this up for the first time. Can you give them a little guidepost?
Yeah, in the same thread of the quantum space, quantum energy, it has frequencies. And even with health and wellness and frame of mind, there is a very, very famous guy now that has done so much work with quantum physics and the brain, Dr. Joe Dispenza. For example, there's several of them that have, but they have really taken it to the next level and found out a lot of stuff. So basically, in this quantum alchemy, this quantum magic, so to speak, there are high and low frequencies, and high frequencies are associated with optimism, joy, freedom, things like that. Low frequency is guilt, anger, indifference. Indifference is kind of, actually, believe it or not, is more on the lower side than in the middle. So it's a way of explaining the magic in the book, but yet still associating it with our mind and how we think and our body. Oh man, this is a low frequency way to intend to do this, or whatever. But if people don't want to get that kind of stuff, they can just take it at surface level and have a ball.
Yeah, but you have a lot of really deep spiritual meanings, regardless of what a person believes. You talk a lot about raising the vibration, like we're kind of talking about empathy, love, acceptance. You talk a lot about compassion. And I love the way you approached purpose with Aru, where it's like, I can kill, but I got to have a reason. Like, he's very purposeful about what he's going to fight for. So
yes.
did you infuse those takeaways on purpose, or did it just kind of flow naturally?
No, it was on purpose.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it was more of a gut. Mm-hmm. But as I starting to get into how I was settling on how I was going to do this whole legacy series. Yeah. Then it started, I rewrote book 1. I stopped counting it. I stopped counting the edits, full edits, at 22.
Wow. You're not talking line edits, you're talking serious rewrites.
Yeah. Wow. Because of settling on this whole thing.
Yeah.
And because I wanted it to be relatable to everyone as much as possible. I mean, somebody that likes maybe crime thriller may not like this kind of book. However, I will have to say my sister's a crime thriller person, and she loves the series, and it isn't just because of me, because she she would tell me if she didn't like it, that kind of stuff. Oh, I can't get into it. She has no problem telling me. But anyway, so it just depends on, a person at the time and what their likes and dislikes are. So, but I tried to make it as relatable to everybody as possible.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Zreyas, it's very funny to see his emotional changes. Like the first time he's like, what the heck is this? What's a tear? Oh, I'm learning what a smile. It's like, oh, I can make my face do that too. And it's just very funny that you get the sense he's an adult, like learning, how to be a compassionate person, which is interesting. I think a few people, I can think of a few people offhand who could use that lesson. Okay, so let me talk before we wrap up anything. I want to talk a little bit about Aya, because she makes an appearance and then she kind of goes away and comes back. So I feel like she's going to make a bigger appearance in the next book. Is that correct? I got the impression that almost like she was a higher frequency being that got reincarnated and kind of stuffed into this physical body, and she doesn't feel like she fits in, and the family's like, what's going on with this person? And then you mentioned she has all this knowledge, but everybody's like, oh, isn't that cute? Like kind of almost like they're not taking it seriously. So I'm going to assume that she is like you and she might be, is she like you observing this story, or you tell me?
Yeah, if any part of my life is portrayed, it will be through Aya. Aya's experience, the firehouse, the bird, all of her experiences I had.
Yeah.
But they were adapted to fiction.
Okay.
But it's really for story's sake, because she is a main character. She's not the main character, but she is a main character. She's one of the very strong, supportive characters that is important. Just because she doesn't take spotlight all the time doesn't mean that she's not as important as Zreyas, for example.
Yeah, I almost got the feeling like all of these other characters came from her mind, and this is her observing this whole world. And so every once in a while we go back to what she's doing. Was she hard to write because she came from such true experiences?
Yeah, actually in a way, but not. It's kind of funny because Io is a piece of alchemy, right? Just like we talked about before. But she's there. But how do you write somebody that's just there? Just there. So, in the beginning, I had a really hard time writing her. So I thought, okay, well, they're working to help her. They're working because of this whole thing, this challenge thing that pops up. It's like they're working, they have to work with her. They have to protect her because she's so important. I don't want to give away any detail or anything, but it was kind of hard because I needed to integrate what was there with the story and her experiences so that it could actually build her up more and more and more. Because if she doesn't have experiences there, the whole story won't be near as rich. So as book 1, 2, and 3 go so far, she comes in more and more and more, and she fits in more. She's not just there anymore. She's actually important, but yet something really significant starts to happen with her over time, and at first you're not real sure where it's going, and it's just You know, Aru and Aya are very important, you know, and over time, it doesn't reveal itself until over time. This is truly an epic series with it that's sequential.
Yeah.
So,
And I was taking it on a whole like different metaphysical level. I'm like, okay, so people think who believe in reincarnation, same soul over and over and over. I was like, but what if there's this collective souls? And maybe what if a piece like an Aru, a piece of somebody else's soul says, I am going to join you on this next incarnation to help you. And now you've got the normal soul with this other soul attached. And I thought that was just an interesting, at least the way I interpret it, an interesting concept.
yes. Yeah. I mean, you think about it, quantum space, we're all one.
Yeah.
It's just the alchemy of what we choose to take on.
Yeah.
You know, every different experience and every different person always adds to our alchemy. So essentially, you know, you're not off, you're right on.
And I'm going to assume that did you as a little kid actually take your dress off and want to run around because you didn't like
Yes.
clothes?
Yes.
I'm barefoot right now.
Me too. Hate shoes.
Oh, all right. What did I miss? I threw so much at you and I so appreciate your time. Was there anything
no problem.
any takeaway that you want people to know that we haven't talked about yet?
You know, I think because of the questions that you asked, I think people will, if they see this, they will actually be more patient in the beginning of the first book. I am planning on putting out a next edition with a little something in the beginning that will help people more with, you know, two sides merging. You know, there'll be a common thread there that will help those that are so used to everything being very linear. And that's not an insult to anybody. People think and do differently. With younger people especially are growing up an entirely different age than I did, and their thought processes are different. So I honor that, but I'm going to have to do that. I think I feel really strongly about doing that.
And I'd be curious what turns out, because I don't think it's going to be 22 rewrites. I've had that happen in my own writing where I look at something and I'm like, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And then I like move a sentence, I rewrite a little tiny piece, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, now it works. So I feel like you're so close that it's going to be such a minor that you're like, that's it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be something pretty simple. It's just, you know, like in the very first part of the very first chapters, you'll see, you know, 20 days before the fall of Zreyas.
Yeah.
So I wanted to tell the reader, hey, keep your eye on Zreyas.
Yeah.
Who's Zreyas? Keep your eye on him, you know, because he's the main character, you know. So so that helped a lot, especially with the beta readers and stuff. It was like, that is very helpful. That is very helpful, you know, kind of thing. It's not that it's really hard to read or anything like that. It's not complicated, but it is in depth. Yeah. And it starts out with two different sides and their cultures, and then the fractures cause them to merge in a common storyline. In the beginning, it was, you know, Zreyas, it was all about protecting his brother, and Aya, it was all about how she wanted to change things for her people because she's been cooped up in this freaking tower for 22 years or whatever, and you know, none of them are happy with their lives.
Yeah,
you know.
Well, spoiler, it's going to get a whole lot worse before it gets better.
Yeah, usually that's
got to go through it.
Yeah, exactly. So but it's been fun.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me.
I hope it clears things up for folks. I mean, it's the people that actually can get I say to get through, because it's not badly written or anything. It's just
No.
if they can follow, okay, first it's the Viduri, then it's the Janquar, and then they meet.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really a hard concept, but somehow, sometimes people that,
Yeah, I think the first few chapters, there was a lot of the what, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what, and and I think that if there are people who are either not used to sci-fi or not used to the concepts, and they get to the beginning and they get stuck, I don't want them to give up. I want them to say, look at this article and say, oh, okay, now I have a guidepost. At least I know what to expect, or I know it's okay that I don't understand all the pieces.
that is it right there. It's okay that you don't understand all the pieces, because it is a mystery.
Yeah.
It's a lot. I can only choose two categories: science fiction or fantasy or whatever, but it's more than that. It's a mystery. It's a thriller.
Yeah, I'd even put it in sci-fi, and also not necessarily religion. I don't know if there's a better spirituality
Metaphysical,
category.
maybe,
I
or
think metaphysical is
yeah.
I think that would be sci-fi metaphysical reading.
So it's kind of a huge bag. It's a mutt, but that's what life is.
Yeah.
So
ishKiia Paige, thank you so much. And I'll make sure in this article they have a way that they can go and order your books in all its varied formats.
thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that.
This was fun.